for his first interview on the job. He's promising to shake things up and cut waste.
What surprised you most when you took over as Army Secretary?
The whole kind of decision-making process over the last couple of administrations going back 30 years has led to a place where we are having very irrational decisions that don't always look out for soldiers and their needs.
What are some of the biggest wasteful spending projects?
General George, the four-star in charge of the Army, wanted to create an app that basically told when gates would be open on the base, when you could go bowling, what time the restaurants or the DFAC were open. What he heard from our own team was we couldn't do it inside the Army, and instead we needed to go get a quote from the private industry. And $40 million was the lowest quote. And so he ended up breaking through the system, figuring out how to build it. We used our own Army developers to do it, and out-of-pocket expenses were $1,400. And it was working on a base, and they loved it, and they wanted to expand it to other bases. And we were told by our own acquisition team in the Army that no, we couldn't use our $1,400 solution. We would need to go out and use the $40 million solution. That was the one that really broke me and said, we've got to start to do something.
Everybody comes into the Pentagon and believes they can cut spending, that they can make it more efficient, and they hit a brick wall. What's been the reaction from Congress?
When I've talked to Congress and senators, they want to protect for the people from their district. I think when we follow up and say, hey, the consequence of what you're doing on this small scale actually for the last 40 years has hollowed out a lot of the effectiveness of your soldiers, I think that they've been more receptive than I would have guessed.
Explain how it used to work. You have a weapon system, and those defense contractors knew that if you built it in almost 50 states, then you would have votes to protect that weapon system. Is that how it worked, and how will it change?
They would both source their parts from as many different states as they possibly could, and then they would go hire armies of lobbyists. And so you had lobbyists just crawling through the building constantly saying, hey, if you cut this system, I'm going to create harm for you when you try to run for office again. What I've heard from Secretary Hegseth is that that status quo will no longer work. We are going to have a strong, functioning Pentagon and Army, and they are going to do whatever it takes to make it happen.
Jennifer Griffin reporting there from George Patton's riding ring at Fort Myer. Up next, the case of two Jewish